And today, with the one, the only, Jorge Schnura. What's going on, my man? How you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Dude, when I was prepping for this episode, I was reading all the different things you were doing, and trying to do the intro in a really fun way. There was no way I could list all of those things that you're doing in one small intro like that. You've been doing so many things and contributing so much to the space. It's really an honor to be able to chat with you today. Maybe we can start off by really digging into your history and really talking about what you've done, the things you've been a part of, the things you've built, and maybe you can catch us up to the present. Would really love to hear your story.
Sure. Well, I'm half Spanish, half German. Born and raised in Madrid. Studied business administration here, and during my studies, I started my first startup called Taiba. As many startups, it was many different things because we had to pivot a few times, right? But it ended up being a jobs marketplace for tech companies and startups. Sold that in 2015 to a company called Graduate Land. Went on before that, actually, 2013, more or less, I got into crypto for the first time. I was at a shop in Madrid. It was a cafe, and I was going to order a bagel, and I saw that they accepted Bitcoin as payment. And I thought I had read a bit about it, and so on. And so I got myself a few Bitcoin, and then I went and bought a bagel. And I've never made the math on how expensive that bagel is now. But yeah, most expensive bagel I will ever eat, probably. So yeah, and then we sold the company. We built our next one called Sourced. At Sourced, we analyzed source code and tech companies through various methods. Initially, it was purely machine learning methods. Then we did others. It was basically like a business intelligence on code for big tech companies to understand better their software development lifecycle. And then I also built an esports startup called MADLions. And that one we sold to OverActive Media, a Canadian company, of which we then became shareholders, and we took it public in the Toronto Stock Exchange last July. Yeah, then a few other things here and there that I've been involved with, but that's the biggest part.
I love that. So let's really dig into the MADLions story. I come from a very heavy gaming background and specifically played a lot of League. And so you can't play League without knowing who MADLions are. Y'all are one of the best. And really the idea of an esports team as a startup to me makes perfect sense. But can you talk a little bit about like how that idea came to you and why you almost framed it as more of a startup, a tech startup, as opposed to like an esports team? Like, how did you really think that through, and what were kind of the mental models to not only start it and get into it, but then to really build it out?
Yeah, well, it was 2017, and we were starting to look at a potential exit for Sourced, and so I started thinking, what's next, right? And I wanted to do I wanted to do something fun, something that I would have fun with, and gaming is probably my biggest passion. I haven't played like more than maybe 10 hours in the last year or so, because like since I'm a parent, I don't have time at all, sadly. But it's still my biggest passion and what I would love to spend more time on. And so I started looking at the esports industry. I had looked into it a bit before because one of my investors at Taiwan at Source, they were some of the first and biggest investors in Astralis. And I saw that it was a great industry because fans, it was truly built by fans initially, which is something that's beautiful, because at the beginning there were no sponsors, there were no big organizations, big investors, businessmen. It was purely the fans and players and so on. So that was something beautiful, and they had built something authentic and pretty big, actually, for it not for there not being like professional investors involved, etc. But then at the same time, we saw that there was opportunity to make it grow more by bringing in some of the more outsider business knowledge, so to say. And and we said, let's do it. It's a fun business. We really believe it's the future of entertainment, because the good thing about esports versus other competitive ways of entertainment like traditional sports, is that it can evolve constantly, right? I mean, League of Legends, the way it's played now, the meta now, is not the same as it was 10 years ago, right? Or whatever, when League was starting, right? And the good thing of that is that if consumer habits change, these esports are able to evolve with them. You don't have that in football, you don't have that in basketball, you don't have that in any other sport, right? And I think that makes it really the ultimate format of competitive entertainment. That's why we got into it.
I love that. So as you're now, you've matured as an organization. Obviously, you got acquired, and now you're part of, and it seems like you're a pretty active part still, of OverActive. So I mean, you guys are a powerhouse in the esports realm, and this idea now of crypto and gaming coming together. Clearly, excuse me. Clearly, you've been in crypto for close to a decade now. Is that not the most exciting thing that you've ever seen? Like, how do you view that? How do you think about that, as kind of the intersection of these two industries?
Yeah, so they have one thing in common, which I touched upon before, and it's that, crypto, if you look at crypto, and really like the first big use case of crypto has been DeFi, right? Um, it's, DeFi, so a financial system that's as corporate as it gets, right? That's kind of like, as it's banks, it's funds, and yet those who have built up DeFi, and hence have really built up the first real valuable use cases for crypto, have been the people, right? And kind of the fans of crypto, right? Very similar to esports, right? It was built by the fans. It wasn't built by big traditional sports organizations, etc. And that means that both are very authentic and both are digitally native, right? So there's a big overlap, I think, in what they have in common, and that means that there's also a lot to do together, right? If you now take the second use case of blockchain, which is NFTs, and how those NFTs become more usable, valuable, and have more utility when you're in a metaverse versus a physical universe, right? You start to understand the opportunities that lie, before you, right? We've always said that esports teams, they have a harder time making money with merchandise, with traditional merchandise, than traditional sports teams, right? And it's not an issue of our fans not having purchasing power. They have more purchasing power than the average citizen. It's not a matter of really anything that's fundamentally wrong with our fans or the way we create merchandise. Like, you look, not looking at MADLions, but looking at any esports team in the LEC and in any top league, and their merchandise is great. Like, it all looks great. It's really beautifully designed, great quality with great brands attached to it. We have Cap as our partner there, and still, we do sell a lot, but it's not comparable to traditional sports, right? And the reason for that is that I think we need to find things that are equivalent to merchandise, that are authentic and native to our fans, right? And I think NFTs is that thing, actually, because it's digital. It speaks so much more to our type of fan generally, even if there's some haters there, of course. But I think they'll come around. And it's just so much more natural to our activity than physical merches.
Well, there were haters to the internet back in the
Yeah.
the early 1990s, so I think those people are going to quickly realize, in the next coming years. But you're absolutely right, and we're seeing about this NFT medium being so native to gamers and crypto together. It just fits so perfectly. Like, I'm always seeing the people who are gamers understand crypto the best. I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and he had zero crypto knowledge, but he was a gamer. And I was like, okay, well, the virtual currency in your game that you use to buy skins? He's like, yeah. I was like, the virtual currency is crypto, the skins are NFTs. He's like, oh. Wait, that's awesome. And instantly he got it, right? So as we have now the next generation of people coming up, like the teenagers of today who grew up always purchasing skins, putting all their disposable income into NFTs or, legacy versions of what then are becoming NFTs now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be a revolution. And
yeah.
so how are you guys preparing and thinking about this from your side? Like, what are you doing now so early on to be prepared for when it does become more mainstream and it becomes the norm?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's it's a hard question to answer because it's not about really figuring out a plan for when it becomes mainstream, because by that time it will have changed so much, right?
Mm.
That you cannot plan that much time in advance, really. Like you see many people, haters saying, well, what's the real use cases of crypto, etc. Well, the use cases of the internet that we're using today, no one would have been able to think about them. No one could have imagined them when the internet was born, right? That we would have small device in our hand, and there we would be able to, have a live conversation like you and I are right now, right? And hundreds of people, if not thousands or millions, in the case of our esports games, watching it live, and all the things we do with the internet on our devices, right? No one would have been able to think about that. So we're constantly thinking, what are not the obvious things to do in crypto, right? Because many times as human beings, when we have a new technology or a new medium on our hands, we try to replicate what we would do on previous mediums or previous technologies in that space, right? So when YouTube came along, many people started doing traditional TV content on YouTube, etc., until they understood it's a different thing. You need to do something completely different, right? And that's currently what we're thinking about, right? We don't necessarily want to be first by just doing the simplest thing that can come to our mind that has been done already by others and whatnot. We really are giving it a lot of thought and are dedicating a lot of resources to thinking, what can we do, with NFTs? What can we do with blockchain? What can we do with crypto that will truly add value to our fans and that is not replicable with other means or other technologies, etc. And that's going to be ever evolving, because this is just the very beginning. And the same way as digital marketing has evolved constantly over the last 30 years, it's going to be a very similar thing. And if we innovate now, if we don't keep innovating, whatever we do now, it's going to be old school in 3 years.
Absolutely. What that screams to me is, in a world of horse and buggy, you guys are trying to figure out how to build the car. And even when, consumers are asking for a faster horse, you guys are trying to be complete game changers. How do you approach that innovative process? Are you just sticking smart people in a room and saying, go build, go experiment, go have fun? Like, how does that actually happen in such a successful organization that you've already built?
Well, it's a lot of education, so it's important that everyone understands crypto well. We see a lot of examples of companies getting into crypto, and you can clearly see that they don't have a deep understanding of this world. And the expression going down the rabbit hole is there for a reason, because it's really deep, right? So that's the first thing, right? And then the second thing is really not trying to think about what can we launch that will be successful, but what pain points and needs do our fans, in the context of being our fans, have that can be solved with this or can be improved with this, right? Is the metaverse, our new iteration of community management on Discord, right? Where instead of doing a meet and greet with our players, where each of our players is just a profile image and you just hear them talk, where you can do that meet and greet while you play a game on, I don't know, on one of the metaverse games, on, I don't know, on a land, piece of land or parcel that is of the team. And can we maybe do it so that if you buy MADLions merchandise, you get also an NFT version, and that it's one and the same thing? You've bought you've bought the design and you now have it on physical and on digital. But even those things, when we talk about them, I still get the feeling that they're like amateur things to do, right? Even if they're different from what others are doing, I still think that 3 years from now we will look back and we will say, man, we had no idea what we would actually be able to do with this.
That's amazing. That even somebody as sophisticated as you guys, you're still, I mean, you're still seeing it as I think a lot of the smart people in this space are seeing it. Even with all the capabilities that you have, like still you guys are, it seems like you guys are sprinting, just to be at the forefront here. So who do you think are going to be the folks that, and maybe not, I'm not asking specific names at all, but just the people, like how are the people who are going to be the most successful in this new revolution? How are they going to think? Is it going to be similar to how you guys are thinking about it? Or like, do you think there's going to be, just a different type of approach or thought process to this?
Yeah, I think, look, there's one of our partners. He's one of the biggest YouTubers worldwide. He's called Willy Rex. He's Spanish speaking YouTuber. He has like 60 something million followers across his social media. Really big guy, and I think he's a very good example of how to approach this. He has done several NFT initiatives, and they're all thought of around building a community around him, and they're all thought of people being able to participate more in what he does and to interact better in what he does. And in being able to capture value from what he does, because at the end of the day, if you buy an NFT from that's from an influencer who you're a fan of, and he doesn't just print more and more and more NFTs, and they become something that is reasonably scarce, and that influencer keeps growing, more people will want it, so it will also be more valuable, right? So I think people like him, if I have to drop a name, are people who are thinking about it the right way. They're thinking community first, right? And they're thinking about how to add value to their users first, instead of how to grab some cash, right? And I think that's the most important, because this opportunity that we have in front of us, it's so big that it's really not worth it to make people less confident about you and less trust you less because you do a quick cash grab. You need to think long term, and you need to think about how this will really leverage everything you're doing 5-10 years from now.
I love that. So let's talk about how, and again, I'm really interested in the intersection of esports and the whole crypto space and crypto gaming. How do you see that evolving over time? I have my own thesis, but would love to really hear how you're thinking about the evolution of esports over time.
Right. So, I think I think we cannot look at it as evolution of esports really, but as evolution of gaming, and
Mm,
esports being a part. So I don't think there's a blockchain strategy that a publisher should have for esports, but a blockchain strategy a publisher should have for gaming, where esports can tap into that, right? And it's right now it's very, very hard to say, because there's been very little experiments on that front of from a league or a game itself implementing blockchain technology. I mean, a game that is an esport, right? I'm not talking like all the play to earn games out there. Implementing blockchain in a meaningful way, right? We've seen a few leagues do small tests, with NFT drops and so on, but nothing that really blows anyone's mind, right? And I think that's just because we're very early, and because we haven't been able to invent yet the killer app, right? If you look at Amazon, Amazon was very early days, but then in the internet, I mean, relatively early days, not as early as we're now in crypto, but if you look at the killer apps we're using right now, that are internet based or Web 2 based, it took a long time to come up with them, right? And I think it's going to be the same thing. So it's not that I don't want to give an answer, but I think it's no one has that answer right now, and we just need to test. And the important thing is that it's like in startups, right? When you build a startup, you cannot become obsessed with the solution. You need to become obsessed with the product, and then the solution, you need to pivot constantly, right? And you need to be able to iterate as fast as you can. So here, I think what we need to identify are the pain points, are the where we can add value to our fans, and that's that feeling of community, that feeling of ownership. I can see perfectly a world where you take the example from socios.com on the Chili's protocol, or Rally, or any of these, any fan token, and I could really see a place where an esports organization would be owned by the fans, right? Would be owned by a DAO, and it would be governed by them. And that's just another expression of how to be a fan of something and actually be a true owner of it, right? In our case, you can have that because we're publicly listed in the stock exchange in Toronto, right? And you can go and buy a share of OverActive Media, and you're part of it, and you can vote in our shareholder meetings, etc. But a DAO makes it easier for more organizations to access that. You don't need to become huge so that it makes sense for you to invest in becoming a publicly traded company. You can do it since you're smaller, and it allows also for more frequent and engaged interaction with the fans in terms of decision making, etc. So I think that's going to play a huge part. I think that's also going to play a huge part in the development of players' careers. I think we're going to see more and more DAOs investing in players' careers and sponsoring them and helping them grow. Same with influencers, etc. So I do think there's an angle there. And then I think there's an angle in the ownership economy, and then on the community side. I think those are kind of like the three aspects we need to focus on just churning different solutions and seeing what sticks.
That's fascinating. I want to make sure we have a question coming in from Mark. He's always a regular here. I want to make sure we get to his question. He's asking, what do you see as the principal pain points for esports fans at this juncture that Web3 is best positioned to solve?
Yeah, I see mainly, the one that I see the most. Not sure if it's a pain point, as like something that it is kind of broken, but it's maybe not like a pain point per se. But I think that when you look at traditional sports, you have the stadiums, right? And people are used to gather there. It's a social event. You go there with friends, with family, with other fans, and you have some drinks. You watch your match. You maybe do something before that, also with friends, and so on, and something after that, etc. Our fans, they're digitally native. They don't, kids, they don't go to a park anymore that much to play together. They meet in Fortnite, right? And my friends, I sadly don't have the time anymore, but my friends, they meet up every night and play a few games of League, right? And we're more used to meeting and socializing in a digital world. In the metaverse, it's a very trendy term, but I don't like it too much because the metaverse is something that has existed for a long time, right? But right now in centralized places, right? But I think that's where we can add most value in creating experiences where our fans, what's the equivalent of us having a stadium but in a digital world? What's the equivalent of us playing a match in front of an audience but in the digital world? And it's not having a digital stadium in Decentraland and just playing from there. That's not the answer, because there you are trying to leverage the pros of being in the physical world but in a different place, right? And that makes no sense. That's what we need to figure out, right? And that part, that getting that engagement that you see in traditional sports of people going to a stadium and shouting and cheering and all that stuff, I think that's what we can achieve only if we're in a place like a metaverse that's decentralized, that's blockchain based, where fans own what they're wearing, where they own their proof of attendance protocol badge that they just got because they attended this very special event and they were there when, I don't know, when we reverse sweeped in the finals of the LEC or whatnot. Those things are, I think, the special things that we need to figure out. to create more engagement with the community and make them have more fun, or allow them to have more fun.
So I could literally see a world where there's like a virtual stadium, and let's take League for example. Like within the stadium, there could be a couple of different games going on, and then if you want to watch, let's say, Mads taking on one of the arch nemesis, of y'all's, in your league, um, maybe the fans who have gotten a certain level of NFT, or got in early and minted early, or something like that, maybe they could actually exist within the metaverse version, or the metaverse visualization of the game. They could be running around on the playing field, like on Summoner's Rift, and like watching this stuff up front and personal. Obviously, they'd have to be invisible to the players because that'd be distracting, but like they could be more in it and just have even a more immersive experience than is
Yeah.
currently possible, or something like that. I mean, that would only be possible
Yeah.
in some sort of metaverse. And by the way, I totally agree with you. The metaverse is just the internet. Like it's just a
Yeah.
rebranding of the internet. So, I think
Yeah.
we're on the same page there. But
Exactly.
something like that.
I agree. The thing also that we need to be very careful of is that we're not creating walls, right? That we're allowing people to have the same access to what they had before with the same freedom, but at the same time allowing other people, who want to have access to something that we couldn't give them access before, to own that, right? It's kind of like the NFTs thing of people, if there's an NFT of a CryptoPunk, PFP of any kind, people can still use that JPEG, as much as they can. They can put it as a Twitter profile without owning it. It's okay. That's what creates its value, and we shouldn't avoid that happening, because that's putting walls and detracting value from something that we already had, freedom. But at the same time, someone can be the owner of that, right? And I think that's what creates value both ways, right? Because at one point, a meme that has been originally minted as an NFT, imagine, if it becomes valuable, then people will also share it more. It will become more known. I mean, it just creates value both ways, right? But we need to be careful not to put walls, right? Not to put barriers to what we already had.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to talk to you about, again, I want to stick on kind of on the future of esports and gaming, because what I kind of see is this future where it's almost like a different classes of esports are going to arise. Like right now, it's very much the best of the best players are the ones that are able to compete in the most badass tournaments and win the best prizes, right? But with play and earn coming up as a new phenomena, to me that opens up the door for esports teams that, yes, there's an elite division, and of course that's always going to be there. That's amazing, and I'm super glad that will be around forever, and I really hope it is. At the same time, I think the ability to play and earn opens up a new category of esports where the casual gamers can get together and they can grind out, and maybe each one individually are not as elite as the top players, but together they are many. And so then they have significant earning power and playing power as a group, almost like an esports guild of some sorts. Are you seeing any, like, are you thinking about that? Are you seeing that as well? And what are your thoughts on that potential future?
Yeah, I think it's going to be even more revolutionized. So I think that what we're seeing right now, and I love it that you say play and earn and not play to earn, because I hate the term play to earn, because it takes it's one of those things that it's one of those bad things in crypto, right? Where there are some people that are purely focused on how to make cash grabs and so on. And when that claim play to earn is like, you're playing to have fun, right? And the good thing with blockchain games is that you can own the assets that you've purchased or that you've earned or created in your game and bring them elsewhere, etc. But that shouldn't be the purpose of it. It should still be to have fun, right? And that being said, I think video games generally, they're just going to be such a different thing from what, like, genres of video games, how they work, etc. I don't think that the way crypto is gonna be integrated is that now you're going to have Fortnite where your V-Bucks are a digital currency that you can swap on Uniswap if you want to, and sell to others, and your skins are going to be NFTs. I think that's going to be a small part of it, but I think games through this are going to be just completely reinvented in how they work. They're going to be more, based on economies, on people collaborating, on people doing, it's going to be more like many games inside of one game, right? Where depending on where you are at in terms of, how much maybe you invested or how much time you invested into it, your game is going to be different because your tasks are going to be different, etc. But it's still very early to say, right? But in esports, I think is going to be baked into that. I think esports has something similar with crypto in that right now the most popular esports games were video games which became esports, right? And I think more and more, but it's slowly happening, we're seeing game developers design video games that are esports, and it's a different thing because that's where game developers start to think from the very start of the process of designing a game. How do we integrate the competitive activity, the esports activity, not just the multiplayer that you do at home, etc., but the viewing experience? How do we integrate it into the core game, right? The what role do the teams have, esports teams, in the core game, right? And how does that affect the core game that you play as a single player or as a multiplayer? I don't mind, right? But we're seeing that with publishers happening already, that they're thinking more and they're coming up with more imaginative ways of how to integrate both worlds, right? And then when you add blockchain to that, it's just another dimension. So again, here, I think what's going to happen is that 10 years from now, the games we're going to play, they're just going to function, as differently as if you would compare now Grand Theft Auto to Super Mario, right? And Grand Theft Auto Online maybe to Super Mario. It's something that was unimaginable in every possible way when we were playing Super Mario back in the days. And I think that's why I say it's my answers are very vague, but because I think that if I give you a concrete answer, it's going to be bullshit because it's not going to be what actually happens. I think we're going to be all very surprised.
Well, it would be insane to expect 100% accuracy. Like if we're in and this is kind of the next thing I wanted to ask, like how early are we? Because if we're in the Pong days, there's no way we could predict that League was going to be a thing. Like there's just no, that's just not possible. So how early on do you think we really are in this whole spectrum? Some people have tried to quantify it different ways, like saying, oh, we're in the Pong days, oh, we're at $100 Bitcoin, oh, we're in. What's a good way to quantify that?
Yeah, I think the wrong way to quantify it is by market cap, right? And you need to look at what possible applications are there, right? And I don't want to get into philosophical discussions about Bitcoin, etc. But with Bitcoin, at least from my point of view, and I know there's people who think differently, there is a certain amount of use cases that you can use it for, in my opinion, and where it makes sense, right? And since they're relatively limited or pretty limited, which can be a feature as well, right? It doesn't need to be something bad. You can more or less say, right, as a store of value, where is it? Well, you can compare its market cap to gold. As a currency, where is it? And there you can compare it against currencies, right? If we look at other cryptos, right, or other protocols, if we look at Ethereum, well, what are the use cases of Ethereum? They are so many, right? Potentially so many that I cannot begin to list them, right? What are the current use cases of Ethereum? I don't mind any Solana, Avalanche, any other protocol that allows for Turing complete smart contracts, right? Well, the current use cases are DeFi, play to earn, and NFTs, right? NFTs, like apart from play to earn, right? That's the current use cases that have had some traction. how far along are they? Well, if you compare DeFi to TradFi in terms of be it total value lock, be it volume, be it whatever, it's extremely early, right? If you compare the play to earn or play and earn or crypto gaming or blockchain gaming to the traditional gaming industry, it is big, but because it captures more value, because at the end of the day, if you play Axie Infinity, you need to spend a certain amount of value, if you of money, et cetera, that you don't when you play other games, right? But if all the big publishers would implement blockchain gaming, right, then it would be much bigger. But and then you have NFTs, and you compare that to art, but that's just 3 use cases. And something like Ethereum, it's world changing, right? Or Solana, whatever, right? It's world changing. It's not going to be 3 use cases. It's going to be thousands, right? And they're still to be discovered, invented, and some still need to migrate because there are direct translations from one thing to the other where you can just like improve it by copying it or whatnot. And that's the way you look at how early are we, right? And we are at nowhere right now. We're at the like step 2 or step 1 out of a million, right? That's how early I think we are.
That's amazing. So I know we're coming close to time here. Obviously, you're very very busy man, and I want to be very respectful of your time. So for the people who I kind of want to piggyback on that last answer, for people who want to be a part of the space, they want to get into crypto gaming, they want to get into esports, they want to just be in this field. It's very exciting, and candidly, I think it's one of the most important innovations and pieces of technology on an industry level for the future of humanity, because like you said, we are drifting towards socializing right now in a digitally native space, and eventually I think everything is going to go there. And so what we're pioneering here through gaming is the future of humanity as a society and as a civilization as a whole. So it's really important, way beyond just it's super fun, right? And so for those people who want to be a part of this and maybe don't know um, how would you suggest even to begin the process of trying to get into this, get in this industry and really carve out a career in this space?
Well, first, I mean, the user experience right now is just so poor because we're so early that in order to get into crypto, you need to get a bit slightly technical, not really technical, but you need to do some reading, you need to do some studying. And, I think one of the issues we have is that a lot of people have an opinion on crypto after having watched 2 YouTube videos that are, whatever, 5 minutes long each. And now they have an opinion because they heard this or that and they didn't check it themselves. And now crypto damages the environment and crypto does this and crypto does that, and without any clue of what they're really talking about. So you do need to do some studying, right? And then if you want to go down the rabbit hole, I would suggest doing it with something that you enjoy. So in my case, for example, I like gaming and I like finances is a topic that I've always liked and been very interested in. And so for me, for me, doing things in DeFi is a lot of fun. Maybe for some other people, not. It has the economic incentive, maybe only, but it for me, it's a ton of fun, right? And so that makes things much easier because it allows me to be learning while having fun, right? So there's very few use cases in crypto nowadays, right, compared to what I think there's going to be. But if one of the use cases that exist is something that appeals to you, be it gaming, be it finance, which is maybe a bit more rare, or be it art, or be it whatever, try to start there, right? Because you're going to enjoy it. You're going to understand the value that it adds better, right? Like, people who are not into finance will have a hard time understanding what DeFi really does, besides like being unbanking or unplugging from the traditional financial system. All that sounds like very romantic and very nice, but even for traditional financial agents, players, companies, etc., it's just huge what it does, right? Positively, not just negatively, right? Some people think it's only negative to the traditional financial industry, and it just makes it better for everyone, right? And if you like and understand a topic like that, you'll be able to understand the value it adds more, and that will make it much easier for you to get into crypto. Then if you want to work in crypto, one of my recommendations is try to get involved with some community projects, with maybe a small DAO that might need help in something that you have knowledge from the traditional industry, right? Like I was talking the other day to someone who who founded a not going to say which protocol, but a protocol that is growing extremely fast in this last month and is now pretty huge. And I was shocked at how little knowledge the team had about PR, for example, about doing proper PR. And like, people were accusing them of things just because they were not able to communicate properly, right? And they could have saved themselves so much trouble. And, and I was giving them some advice, just because I like the project and I think they're a great team. And if you come from the traditional like non Web3 industry, there's things that that a lot of people in Web3 don't know for sure. So find people that you can help, without any sort of willing to get something in exchange. But that's the way of getting involved, getting to know people, being in the community, and then things will fall into place. And at some point, you'll probably be doing something in Web3.
Amazing. Jorge, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really, I'm just truly honored to be able to speak with you. I just want to thank you so very much for taking out the time.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Likewise. So I just want to thank you again, and to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank all of you. You're what makes this all possible, and you're the reason that we're doing this. So thank you very much. Love all of you, and see you on the next episode. Take care now.